Chapter 2. Mary Kay. Shortly after Marianne's disappearance, Katrine announced she was going to sell Mary Kay products and had at last found her true passion. The very next day, she filled their home with boxes of Mary Kay merchandise. Gracefully packaged pink boxes, bottles, jars, and tubs embossed with the Mary Kay logo arrived. Katrine proudly labeled herself the first Mary Kay consultant in Pittsburgh. "I've finally found my true calling," Katrine repeated as she lovingly unpacked the Mary Kay merchandise and arranged it in Marianne's old bedroom upstairs. "It's just temporary, but I love the natural light in her room. It will work so well as my office." Katrine rationalized her decision. Lilou quietly observed, captivated by the flurry of activity. She had never seen her mother so busy before and wasn't sure what to make of this new development. Several weeks later, Katrine hosted her first sales event. A group of eager women filled their living room. Lilou tipped out of her bedroom, hiding in her usual spot behind the banister. She listened intently as Katrine's accented voice recounted the superior qualities of the Mary Kay cosmetics. The women cheered. Someone clapped. "Your haircut, I love the layers. It's just like Mary Kay ashes," a high-pitched voice said. "Ah bon? Thank you," her mother purred in response in a surprising mix of French and English. Katrine now dressed with even more care and had indeed recently updated her hairstyle to the layered cut that mimicked the hairdo of the brand's founder, Mary Kay Ash. Her mother's face acquired a permanent expression of arrogance mixed with obsequiousness. Very quickly, Katrine developed a following of dedicated customers who adored her. Sales grew, and so did her fame. Passerbys recognized her on the street. Their telephone line was constantly busy, as Katrine received calls with referrals from friends of friends, relatives, and various acquaintances of her happy customers. Lilou's mother loved her new status and reveled in her success. Michael Kelleher insisted it was his wife's French accent that boosted her sales, giving her an aura of superiority and secret knowledge. Katrine was sure that she was born to sell cosmetics, albeit the calling sat undiscovered until recently. Regardless of the reason, her success was undeniable. A year later, in the summer of 1969, Katrine prepared to travel to the annual convention in Texas to celebrate her achievements with an elite circle of Mary Kay consultants from the rest of the United States. Her new suitcase lay open in Marianne's old bedroom as she packed for the trip. In the corner of the room, there was an enormous pile of documents, with receipts and pieces of paper sticking out. Each time Katrine made a sale, she stuffed a new piece of paper into the pile, forgetting about it. Before the trip, Katrine was rummaging through the papers. Suddenly, she burst into tears. "I just can't take it anymore. This is a disaster." She threw a look full of desperation at the mess. "Darling, what's wrong?" Michael Kelleher rushed to the rescue. He could not stand tears, and his wife rarely allowed herself to cry in his presence. "Michael, I just don't understand. I can't seem to put anything together. I still haven't figured out how much I made from all those sales. I have reports from Mary Kay, but I can't verify anything. But it's all so crazy. I get all these ribbons and stars, so I know I am doing well, but I know nothing for sure." "But Katrine, it doesn't really matter. It's not like we need the money. It's just a hobby, right, sweetheart?" Michael gave his wife a kiss on the cheek, clearly relieved that his wife's outburst was not related to anything serious. In response, Katrine stomped her foot. "I've found my calling, Michael. I need to know how much I am making. I need to be in control of my sales." "Mama, Daddy, maybe I can help," Lilou blurted out, and before she could even understand what she was doing, walked into the room. She'd been eavesdropping on her parents' conversation while standing outside the door in the stairwell, just as she always did. But now a strange urge to help compelled her to intervene. Lilou, what are you doing here? Katrine reached for a cigarette and gave her daughter a surprised look. I can add everything up and organize all your receipts, Mama. Lilou walked over to the pile of papers, throwing a surprised look at the room. The space which had become her mother's office felt unfamiliar and strange, as Lilou had hardly entered it since her sister left. This? Katrine pointed at the papers inside. Yes, Mama. Lilou's eyes glittered in excitement. You know how I love dealing with numbers. Yes, you've always liked math. Katrine shook her head. I guess, why not? I've got nothing to lose. Katrine blew a puff of smoke inside. What a great idea, Linda. Michael Kelleher turned to his daughter and gave her a look full of pride. Thank you, Daddy. Lilou smiled at her father. So, Mama, I'd like to take a look at your receipts and invoices. Is that okay? Lilou turned back to her mother, her voice now a near whisper, afraid that her mother would change her mind or have an outburst. Knock yourself out. Katrine shrugged. This is it. The ash from her cigarette fell on one of the documents, but she paid it no attention. With a sigh, she threw a look of disdain at her daughter and left the room without another word. The next day, Katrine Kelleher left for Texas. With her mother away, Lilou spent all week sorting through the documents. She stayed in Mary Ann's old bedroom, finding the space strangely comfortable, and went through every receipt, invoice, check, and note that her mother had accumulated over the course of the year of Mary Kay's sales. Lilou loved deciphering numbers and understanding what they meant. A sale, a new customer, a new line item. She diligently reviewed every single piece of paper and assembled folders for each customer. Despite her lack of organization, Katrine had tracked the dates of her sales diligently, so that part was relatively easy for Lilou to establish. Her mother's expenses were a bigger challenge, but Lilou accomplished the task with the help of her father, who reviewed the withdrawals from their joint bank account. After poring over the documents for a week, sorting through all the papers, adding and subtracting, Lilou established that her mother had made nearly $10,000 in 1 year of Mary Kay sales. Lilou found such pleasure in going through her mother's documents that she was sad when she finished the spreadsheet and took it to her father. The amount that her mother made was a significant contribution to the family's budget, and it made Michael Kelleher pause. That's quite a bit. Are you sure that's right? Her father said. Let me check, Princess. Lilou's father took the spreadsheet from her hands and sat down on the sofa in the living room, his favorite spot. Lilou remained standing, fighting the urge to bite her nails. She felt a knot form in her stomach as she watched her father reading over the documentation. After several minutes, he looked up at his daughter. You did a great job, Princess. I guess we'll need to report this to the IRS. He shook his head. Who knew your mother made so much? Thank you, Daddy. Lilou's cheeks turned red. She reveled in her father's approval. Do you think Mama will be happy? Of course, Linda. Mommy will be very happy. Her father gave her an encouraging wink. Lilou did not share her father's confidence. Her mother was rarely satisfied. Lilou could hardly remember the last time she received any sort of praise from her mother. Katrine was due to return from Texas the following morning, and as Lilou drove with her father to the airport, her stomach churned at the thought of her mother's reaction. Several times during the drive, Lilou started biting her fingernails, then caught herself doing it, remembering that her mother would notice the chewed-off cuticles and reprimand her. Lilou spotted her mother among the other passengers right away. Katrine Kelleher was beaming as she walked towards them. Lilou had never seen her mother so happy and energized. Katrine embraced her husband and gave her daughter a half-smile. I am going to expand my business. The sky is the limit. This is what I learned at the convention, were her mother's first words, as Katrine threw a victorious look at the arrivals hall as if expecting applause from the passengers. I'll even be able to sell Mary Kay products in other places in western Pennsylvania. Just have to figure out the strategy. The whole ride back from the airport, Lilou's mother raved about the amazing women she'd met in Texas and gushed over Mary Kay Ash, the company founder. The women there were all unbelievable, so stylish that was the real America, the crème de la crème, Katrine exclaimed as she took in the dreary Pittsburgh landscape. Never in my life did I imagine that America had such amazing people. And where have they all been hiding? But it's the Southern ladies, that's where the real America is. The class. And Mary Kay herself, she's incredible. What a woman. She's a real visionary, a genius. She came up with the best idea for women like me. She really wants to help women succeed in life. Katrine sighed and looked dreamily at a distance. Honey, that's great, Michael noted. The muscles of his neck tensed as he gripped the steering wheel. Lilou sat quietly in the back, listening. Mary Kay Ash is so generous and smart and so put together. I finally have a role model on how I'd like to be in my old age. I could make money, real money, and income, just imagine, Katrine exclaimed. But I make enough, dear, Michael grunted. Of course. But I could get a pink Cadillac. At the convention, they awarded 5 of them to the best Mary Kay consultants. Can you imagine? A real Cadillac? Picture me driving one in Pittsburgh. But, darling, I thought it was just a hobby. Michael Kelleher responded with an ever so slight sigh, as if listening to the ravings of a friendly lunatic. I've always expected to work, you know, just like my mother, Katrine said in a hushed tone and shook her head. Of course, I couldn't exactly follow in her footsteps. From the back seat, Lilou pricked her ears up, expecting her mother to say more. But Katrine did not elaborate. Yes, dear, Lilou's father said, his tone now conciliatory. Lilou knew that her father did not like arguing and was powerless against his wife's arguments. Katrine Kelleher did not like to lose. As if on cue, her father put his hand on her mother's knee and squeezed it. That meant their disagreement was over. Encouraged, Katrine continued chirping about the magical powers of Mary Kay, now discussing the superior quality of various creams and lotions. Her father was not listening to her mother. Lilou was certain of that, though from time to time he nodded and said, "Of course," and "Absolutely," thereby passively participating in the one-sided conversation. When her mother fell silent for a moment, Lilou cleared her throat. "Mama, I have a surprise for you." Lilou's face turned beet red in embarrassment. "What is it? Are you going to prom?" Katrine turned back to face her daughter. "But it's the summer. Did a boy ask you out?" "No, not a boy. It's something else," Lilou responded in a near whisper. At the mention of a boy, a knot formed in her stomach and her palms began sweating. "Well, just tell me after I unpack." Katrine sighed and turned away. "Yes, Mama." Lilou nodded in relief. No one could know her secret. Lilou had to protect it at all costs from her mother's attention. Lilou was in love with her neighbor, Gary Blackland.